All right, well, hello everyone again. Thank you for staying to participate in the town hall. I'm Susan Anderson, the board president. The board has a brief overview to share of the last couple years, a few PowerPoint slides, and then we're going to open it up for questions and comments. If you would, please save your questions until after we give the update. And to ensure that there is sufficient time for each of the participants who want to provide input, if you would limit your comments to 3 minutes. More detail about how we fared in 2021 will be shared at our annual meeting on March 20th. However, since Reverend Elizabeth Longo begins as our transition minister next week on February 1st, we wanted to let you know how you can help ensure that we restore a firm foundation for our community. We have much to be grateful for, and we thank each of you for the role that you're playing. All right, next slide, Mark. Do we see it? Okay. If you could click one more slide. All right, here we go. In 2020, we saw a decline in donations. Many churches experienced this due to the pandemic. We also stopped holding our weekly bingo sessions at Carefree Bingo, which had brought in significant income for us through the years. Building rental income decreased as well, since spaces in our building were no longer being rented to outside groups. And we experienced the loss of our temple keeper. The good news is, we received our first Paycheck Protection loan, which provided important resources. The Fillmore House was sold, and better yet, it was sold to a member of our community, so we were able to keep it in the family. Because High Plains primarily used the Fillmore House, though, their monthly building share amount decreased. Importantly, the Fillmore House sale in 2020 enabled us to pay off our mortgage here in the main building. And because the main building was closed from March through December of 2020, we also were able to reduce expenses for staff and operations. Through careful stewardship and Ariana's guidance, we made it through 2020. I'm going to turn the program over to Peg now.
Hello, everybody. Every time we try something new and sparkly with technology, we have some challenges. So what you missed on the very first slide was that, our model was to have, this little shift in our foundation. Don, give me one more click. I think, yes, you'll see we had some even bigger shifts in our foundation in 2021. Susan mentioned there were loss of donations in 2020 due to the pandemic. In 2021, we think there were probably additional loss of donations because we lost our senior minister, who was always such a good cheerleader and drew people, and we have had some diminishment of staff. But as you know, we're here because we're still strong and vibrant. In addition to Ariana's no longer ministering to us at the end of June, we also had the fact that because she hadn't taken her sabbaticals over the years that she served with us, she took her sabbatical after she stopped ministering to us. So we had to pay her full salary for an additional 3 months, while revenue was being impacted by the fact that she was not here ministering. And we said we want to start reopening the building, and there were expenses for that, some for the AV system, and of course the delays that we had, but also other things that we had to do. And some of that was because, as was mentioned by Susan, Jamie, because sadly Jamie, our temple keeper, died, but also because financially we had to cut that expense line. A lot of the work of maintaining the building and the grounds fell to our membership itself. Click again, please. What helped us? We made it through, still in the black. But what helped again was that we got the second payroll protection loan, and both of those loans were forgiven. So not only did we have the cash when we needed it, but we didn't have to pay it back. Whew. Mark, can you update what's online? Mark, we've got the green showing up in here, but can you update it so it shows up online? Or maybe it's vice versa. I guess maybe what we're seeing on this big monitor is updated. Is this updated on there too? Oh, that's right. Okay. Are there people, can the people online tell us, are you seeing, and feel free to unmute yourself, are you seeing the PowerPoint with the, Don's going to click again with another 2 green slides.
We see them small to the right of the bigger picture. Right now, the bigger picture shows the bingo restart, but needs volunteers. Now, yes, now the bigger picture is there.
Okay, thank you. All right, so anyway, these are the pieces that are important as to how we made it through in the back. Bingo was able to restart. You'll be hearing more about bingo. When I first came here and I saw bingo advertised, I was like, oh geez, I thought I got away from that when I left the Catholic Church. What I didn't realize is that it wasn't about, socialization and we're all supposed to come to bingo to socialize. I hadn't realized that in their brilliance, the bingo team is a major funding stream for our church that has offset. And because we couldn't do it, we chose not to in 2020 for the safety of our participants, our volunteers as well. Other groups who were doing bingo kept going. The people who had been coming to our game when we wanted to start back up again had found other things to do. So it took a while to build up, but I am just so thrilled to say that bingo is once again, with some additional support from members to help us man that and woman that operation. Bingo is once again starting to come into its own to really help us again through this challenging time. The good news of not having a success finding a full-time minister from October through January is that we weren't paying that full-time salary, but we're still paying $200 a week for the guest speakers. And the other thing that really was so vital last year to reopen the building after essentially being vacant for a whole year was the help of volunteers. And one of those who will be talking to you in the next slide about sacred service, SIVA, and selfless giving, is our board member who has now served 3 full terms, Jeff Cahill, who did an incredible job of basically stepping into the role of temple keeper, maintenance, all things maintenance. Plus, whenever the lawn needed cutting every 10 days, hauling his own tractor here and mowing that lawn. It was just an incredible gift. But it's not him alone. I'm just saying this because my heart is just filled with love for, where is he? For this guy. And we should all just be everyone rightfully has been very thankful for Jamie for what she did when she was president, and definitely for Susan. But Jeff is up for sainthood in my mind too. But we also, those of you who saw how beautiful the grounds were, Donna Grant, really headed a team of gardeners that was very faithful and very diligent. When we asked for help to spread mulch, we had a really fun gathering, and lots of people came out. When we asked in the fall for help raking, we again had a number of people turn out. And that experience was vital and really helpful, not only to support physically what we needed done, but to help us see again, we are a community. And so we had these major shifts over 2 years when a lot of other communities closed. And on top of that, we had the major shift of being in transition for ministers. But we have this opportunity because the goal at Unity Worldwide Ministry is for us to see that we are not the building, we are not the minister, we are not minister-centric, we are ministry-centric, which means all of our community. Marlene's going to tell you about how we can continue to not only survive these shifts in our foundation, but strengthen that foundation for the next 100 years.
Is it? Is it click? Yes, it is. I beg your pardon.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Marlene Milner, and I serve as your Vice President of the Board of Trustees. And today we're talking about time, talent, and treasures as building a strong foundation to work with Reverend Elizabeth. We need increased and consistent contributions for the transitional ministry because as, click please.
Too far left.
No, that's right.
No, that's mine.
Oh,
Okay.
Mark has to go back one slide.
Here we go.
Okay. So we do have a transitional minister, and we will also have guest speakers, and we do have to pay those guest speakers. And of course, we are paying the transitional minister. So we do have ongoing expenses. Also, the building maintenance. We've got lots to do. And I know that although we have money put aside, once it's spent, it needs to be replenished. Click again, please. We need more regular volunteers.
Not the slide.
Oops,
Not the slide.
we're just clicking. We don't need the slide going forward, just the click within the slide. Okay.
Marlene, this is what everybody else is saying.
This one?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. We need more volunteers for bingo, and we're going to have someone talk about that who's really on the front lines with that. But I'm getting excited. I think it sounds like a really fun thing to do, actually. There's no work involved except showing up and bringing good energy. Nominees to serve on the Board of Trustees to work with Reverend Elizabeth. We need people who would want to serve. And I'm going to tell you something that it's been one of the most beautiful experiences I've ever had. I've learned so much and worked with so many beautiful people whose heart centered is on unity, surviving, and not only surviving, but becoming a beacon of light and inspiration in the community. And if you want to know and learn and meet people and have a real say in what's going on in your spiritual community, serving on the board is an honor. It is an honor. And I really want to emphasize that to those of you who see this as your spiritual community. That's something you can really help us with. As Peg mentioned, we did not have we haven't had a temple keeper other than Jeff over here. So absolutely, we need people to help clean up, do the gardening kinds of things, snow removal, all of those things that happen. It just doesn't happen. And right now, it's really, for the most part, fallen on Jeff, and he's been able to do it. And it's got to be very, very demanding. Jeff, thank you for your continued support and all that. Also, we need people that have skills and service for events and projects related to our centennial. I really want to know how many of you want to have this centennial, because we're not getting a whole lot of people involved in that yet, but that's going to be an ongoing effort for us as board members and as a community to celebrate our 100th year. So we want to have some different things happening in that area. So board members, bingo, and temple keeper. That's the 3 stars of needing to volunteer. And I just like to close with this little bit of thought about volunteerism lets people and communities participate in their own growth. Through volunteering, citizens build their resilience, enhance their knowledge base, and gain a sense of responsibility for their own community. Not to mention, we get to connect. So think about volunteering. Thank you.
Okay, now we have one slide. I don't know if we're going to get them all updated. I'm hoping.
Yeah, that's what they're saying outside. It's okay, all's good.
Oh, well, I was asked to give a little bit of a personal impact on what giving has done to my life. And I learned a long time ago that giving is living and living is giving. One can't exist without the other. When I was 25 years old, 50 years ago, I had an emotional mental breakdown practically. I had no control of my emotions. The hate and angers and jealousies, etc., just overwhelmed me. I took to a little bit too much alcohol, a little bit of that wacky tobacco, and it didn't help. But so I got involved in a program, a 12-step program, which basically gave me a new recipe to live by. My experience was such that I had to depend upon others and become other-centered as opposed to being self-centered. In that program, there's a real deep meditative step. That's the 11th step, which basically says it asks you to seek through prayer and meditation to improve your conscious contact with God as you understand him or her, and ask him or her to help you accomplish those things that he wills or she wills for in your life. So I had always thought I was independent and I could do things by myself. And I fell apart trying to do that in just 25 years. So in those recovery programs, they all insist on you being open and try to make amends to others unless it would hurt them, by being honest and free with them, with your information and your remorse. And I did that. And I can look back now after 50 years and say, you know, I don't have any of those in the wake of all those 50 years that I have to do that to anybody, because I have been able to live a pretty wholesome life ever since because of those steps. In that program, the reason I bring that up primarily is that during that period of time, I read a newspaper, and on the East Coast, the Daily News was something that came out of New York City. And on the upper left-hand side, it basically had the date and time and how much it was, 5 cents, 10 cents for an edition. And then the upper right-hand corner, it had a little blurb that was an inspirational passage, whether it was from a quote from Thomas Jefferson or Ben Franklin or a current spiritual leader. But this one day, all it said was, and this emblazoned itself on my heart, just like the 10 Commandments movie where the lightning comes down and strikes at 10 tablets. And 10 Commandments on the stone tablets. And basically it said that all my talents and abilities are my gifts from the Creator, and all the good I can do with them are my gifts back. So I embarked upon a program in my life to be able to fix people's flat tires, or if they had a broken window, put a new pane of glass in, or if they needed a sidewalk shoveled, to do that. To help a lady across the road if she was elderly and the traffic was going to run her over, whatever it was. Even dead animals on the road I was picking up and moving, because I saw the humanity, if you will, inside of an animal that was split open, had the same kind of organs looking like we had. And that we were all living things. We all had that connectedness. And by giving of the time that I was able to give into others, I became more other-centered instead of Jeff-centered or self-centered. And that was what saved my life, I believe. I was very despondent in those first 25 years. And in the Navy, I had thoughts of maybe throwing myself overboard just because I had depression at times that made me feel selfless. I'm worthless, and that I needed to somehow get out of that frame of mind, but wasn't able to until I turned 25, which was 4 years after I got out. So I thank the opportunity today to be able to tell a little bit about that, and that giving still is a major part of my life. And I have a little bit of information I wanted to read that has been put together by one of our wonderful helpmates here on our board. And it tells about that when Ariane introduced us to the Siva word, which basically is about 6 or 7 years ago, it was to remind us that tithing is a spiritual practice which includes giving of our time, talents, and our treasure, however large or small they may be. Selfless giving in voluntary acts not only sustains and builds up our community, but it supports our spiritual growth, and it honors our principles of abundance, where the flow of prosperity starts with giving. That is, you always seem to get back more than what you give. During 2020, we proved what Ariana had tried to teach us, that our spiritual center is not the building, as has been mentioned, but the way we are woven together in love and service, even if that means many of us still do that through Zooming. And then during 2021, we began to prove something that Unity Worldwide Ministries recommends, that spiritual centers should not be minister-centric, again, as was mentioned, but ministry-centered. Not that this means board-centric, but rather the ministry of our center is the combined sacred service of each and all of its members. For those who have read the words in the Christian Bible, quote unquote, no greater love hath any man but to lay down his life for another, end quote. In New Thought, this can be reinterpreted. It doesn't necessarily need to refer only to being willing to die for someone else. It can mean being willing to share one's life's forces or talents and abilities, just as I mentioned that what inspired me. Our board members lay down their lives every day, so to speak, through the time they spend guiding our community and seeking the next minister. Our wonderful volunteers have laid down their life forces this last year through the gardening and cleaning, mulching, raking, and preparing our building to reopen. I'm reminded of the parable of the rich man who donated a bag of gold to a certain cause or to the temple, and a little old lady only gave a couple shillings or pence or coins. And the lesson in the Sunday school classes I remember as a boy, the teacher asked who gave the most, and all of us boys would say, "Oh, the bag of gold, the bag of gold." And none of us thought even to look that deeply into the fact that the little lady who had given those several coins had given all of what she had, and the rich man only gave a pittance or a portion of his. So it isn't dependent upon how much we all give, it's what we can give and what our abilities are. And each of us has our own limitations, but we have to know that this building cannot exist without the giving of time and talent and treasure, and we all can use any portion of that you can give to us as a whole community. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Beautiful, truly. Excuse me. I'm Luanna Turner. I'm new on the board this year. I've just been on for about a month now, and it's been really great. I'm really honored to be on it. My talk today is how can you help financially? During the time period before COVID in 2019, up until now, our contributions have actually decreased by 27%. This is due to many factors like the building being closed for COVID, our minister retired, Ariana. Some people were dropped from the e-blast, the communication means that we use. And so they may have lost information about what was going on. And as mentioned, we are correcting that e-blast. Next, please. Okay. A way you can help with the financial is to authorize automatic bank withdrawals rather than using your credit card or your debit card. And this saves us about 3%. You can contact Kayla to set this up. Next, okay. Auto tithing is our sustainability program. When you set this up, your contribution is the same amount each month. Sustainability is a word that we hear often. A broad definition means the ability to maintain or sustain over time. Once again, you can set this up with Kayla. Another way to give is through Amazon Smile. Name Unity in the Rockies as your designated charity. We got back $216 from this program in 2021. This is free money. It doesn't cost you anything. And if you do want to set this up, the information on that is in the e-blast. If you shop at King Soopers, a lot of us do live in this area, set this up, register with King Soopers. Designate Unity as your charity of choice. We get back a percentage of whatever you spend for your groceries or gas. You can also use your card at Loaf and Jug and City Market. We got back $2,631 from this program in 2021. The more you spend, the more fuel points you'll receive, and that will save you on your gas. And this is mentioned in the e-blast as well. There's a link for it with King Soopers. If you work for a company with a matching grant or matching gift program, consider setting that up so that your gifts go to Unity. And if you do have that, your HR program can help you set that up. Another way is support our Wednesday Carefree Bingo. That's on Carefree Drive, is it? Yeah. Carefree Circle. Carefree Circle. So support that program by volunteering or encouraging your friends to attend for a fun afternoon. Thank you for helping to manifest our future. Yes. Oh, the tithing. That was quite a few years ago. Thanks, Nori. Thank you. Yeah, that's been valuable. We've been doing it for a number of years. It's really our sustainability program. So, yeah, before we go on to take questions, Dawn is going to say a few words.
Thank you very much, Lou. Well, we've mentioned bingo several times today. Unity hosts a bingo game every Wednesday at Carefree Bingo, which is on North Carefree Circle, about a block west of Academy. We host a game for between 40 and 70 players between 12:15 and 2:30. Many of our volunteers have been helping out for several years. You may ask why, and it's not because they're chained to the wall. It's because we actually have fun. And you can ask any of the volunteers who are there. We have a lot of fun, as well as we also raise money for Unity. Right now, it's about $1,000 a month. And so when we first started last June, it took a while for us to get our customers back because we were gone for 2 years. And now we're back to where we're making about $1,000 a month and perhaps even more. So if you can help us out even once a month, it gives the other volunteers a chance to be more flexible on their days off. They could take a vacation or whatever they would like to do. So we would really appreciate if you could contact me. I'm going to say my email address. It's only 6 characters long, dontur@gmail.com. So if you can help us out, contact me and we can chat. We have several different kinds of positions. We can start you off at the most simple positions where you sell a bingo sheet for 50 cents or $1. They give you the money and you give them the change. It's no more complicated than that. And then you can move on to other positions. We have cashiers, we have prize payers. If you want to see a lot of people smile, be a prize payer, because when they say bingo and you give them $100 or $250 or $700, our last prize is $700, you can see a lot of people smile. And you can be a caller. The caller is a person that's in the center of all the action. Again, contact me if you'd like to be on this team. We'd like to have you. If you don't remember my email address, dontur, then contact Kayla. The next thing, I want to talk about another topic briefly, and that topic is the board, membership on the board. I'm also on the committee that is helping find members for the board with Vern and Sylvia and Susan and Jeff. Got them all finally. Who else? Oh, Vern, did I say Vern? Vern's there. So we've already contacted several people already, and you may be one of those. I would like for you to seriously consider if now is the time for you to volunteer to serve on the board. Our board committee has talked to many of you already, as I mentioned, and a lot of you are just simply unable to do that now. And I get that. There's just too many things going on in a day and you don't have time. That's very valid. But if you're in a place of, well, I might be able to do that, but it's just kind of not a good time now, like this appeal is for you. It doesn't get to be a better time than now to serve on the board. We all said before, Unity is not the minister. It's not the building, but it's you. That's who Unity is. And if you want something to happen at Unity, then you are the ones to make it happen. So please consider volunteering for that role and contact me at dontur@gmail.com and let's chat.
Before we go any further, I've gotten a couple of chats, so thank you for that, Don. And you're making me you're reminding me that my husband and I've learned, if you wait until, it's the right time to have a child, you'll probably never have a child. But so if you wait until it's the right time to be on the board for you, if we don't have the board support we need, there might not be a board to be on. So please think about that seriously. But secondly, I received a couple of texts. For some of you who it's been a couple of years and you may not think about it, when I mentioned our temple keeper had died, Jamie, that was a male temple keeper named Jamie. Our former board president, Jamie Finn, is still alive and hopefully even more well than she was when she had to step down. Thank you.
All right, we're open for questions or comments. And one thing I just want to put out there, because it's a question that the board has been asking. We would love to have greater attendance in person, so we would love to hear from you today as to what is keeping you home and on Zoom rather than being here in person. We're grateful for those who come each Sunday, and we just want to see a bigger group here. So with that, let's open it up for questions, and hopefully I can see if you're raising your hand. All right. Yeah, or if you're not raising your hand, just unmute and ask your question or make your comment. Oh, come on, surely some of you have comments or input. All right, Vern.
Hi,
Hi,
go ahead,
Vern.
Shanna, I'll wait.
Okay, Shanna.
Okay, I
Then
just wanted
Vern.
to say, sometimes I happen to be down the pass helping somebody over the weekend. And a couple weeks ago, I was able to come physically, and that was the first time I was in the building since we had closed, what was it, a year ago, last March. Anyway, as a lot of you know, I live in Guffey, and especially in the winter, it's almost a 60-mile drive one way. And so that's why I don't come physically very often. I will when I can. A lot of times I'm not on Zoom either because we have a horrible connection. We don't have internet out where we are. So it's very iffy. I happen to be pet sitting today, and they have all kinds of equipment to have a good connection, so I'm able to attend. A lot of times I just watch the replay. But anyway, I'm up for helping out with the centennial, different ideas that people have come up with any way that I can. Again, just knowing that, it's about a 60-mile drive one way to get there. So holding space for all the beautiful things that are possible for our unity. Thanks.
Thank you, Shanna. We were so glad to see you a couple weeks ago when you were here. So thanks for making the effort to come. Vern, you were next.
Two responses. First, in terms of today, we're being virtual, but I've been there also since we've reopened. The difference for me would be if we reopen the fellowship hall and have a fellowship gathering after service. I think I'd certainly be more attractive to me with proper social distancing. I understand Unity's position on this, but also we live in Colorado Springs where Charlotte and I were out for dinner tried to go out for dinner the other night. The restaurants are actually putting people in exactly the same way they always did before COVID even showed up. So I think we can be very safe with masks and still have conversations and fellowship. But right now, as I understand the board's position is we aren't going to open that. So I would just request that to be reconsidered. My second point would be about what you are offering us today, which is certainly well said and a very important message. But in some ways, recognize there's 17 people on virtual and perhaps 10 people there. We're talking to such a small minority of our membership that this message needs to go out in another form, which probably has to be an individual letter or something on that nature. Somewhat important, and certainly I'm on the board nominating committee and recognize what Don and Jeff were talking about. We have a crucial need and that we have to get that message out to larger audience than we're doing today. So those would be my two comments.
Thank you, Vern, and the board will certainly take into consideration your request for the reopening of the fellowship hall. We'll talk about that at one of our next meetings, so thank you. All right, anybody else want to jump in? Oh, hello. Okay. Jeff? We can handle that for those who didn't hear. Jeff has made some beautiful signage for us, so that's something we can do. Great suggestion. Thank you. Why don't you repeat the question for the Zoom people? The question was about having signage out front that just promoted that the church is reopening and including a phone number, or we actually have a web link they could check for reopening guidelines. All right. I do not. Wow. Thank you for coming today, Noreen. Huh. Anybody else?
I have one more quick question. I found it interesting that in all this time, the bookstore hasn't been mentioned at all. And I used to volunteer with Crystal a couple times a month in the bookstore. So is it going to ever reopen, or is it just going to completely sit there, or has anything been discussed about it?
Well, we
Because
have
even Crystal hasn't heard anything from anybody.
Well, the bookstore is currently closed. It has been closed throughout the time the building was closed. Our thought was that when we have a new senior minister, or maybe even with Reverend Elizabeth, who is coming on next week as our transition minister, she may wish to open the bookstore. But we were going to let the next minister, whether it's transition or our new permanent senior minister, give guidance on whether we should do that. I know that somewhere along the way, since we no longer have the Fillmore House available for a youth program, the thought was that maybe we needed extra classroom space. I do not know what the answer is on the bookstore, whether it would be, that space would be used for something else. The bookstore is certainly important to us, so hopefully a new senior minister would want to reopen it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Phyllis, I think you had a question or comment.
I wanted to answer your
She's
question.
unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. About staying home on Zoom instead of going to the sanctuary. And I think for a lot of people it's easier. It's safer. You don't have to get dressed up and drive in your car. So it's a matter of convenience. And I appreciate what you're doing to get the sanctuary ready for people who want to come there. But if I have the choice, it's nice to stay home. Of all the things that you said, I think the thing that concerned me the most is that donations are down 27%. And I see that our participation is down accordingly. And we have a new interim minister who's going to cost some more money. Are we going to have some problems, or what specifically do we need to generate to pay for all of this?
Well, that's a good question, Phyllis. We certainly hope that people will increase their giving. We're so happy that bingo is up and running again and generating revenue. With our transition minister, you need, I think we've said this before, but I'll say it again. Reverend Elizabeth is half-time for us. We are sharing her with another church where it's Renaissance Unity in Ohio. So we are sharing her half-time. Therefore, we're not paying a full minister's salary for her. So we just hope that people will give generously this year to help us sustain a transition minister, and also to help us attract a new senior minister. We think that once, we've been going since October with guest speakers, and we're thinking that Reverend Elizabeth is going to bring us some energy and attract new people to Unity. We know that she's very eager to teach some classes and workshops. She has an abundance class that it's not the same as Prosperity Plus, but there's an abundance class she teaches that she's, will encourage people to take. So we're just going to be resilient and, put out that positive energy that will attract people to Unity. So, Pat Walla. Oh,
Yes.
I'm sorry. Well, go ahead, Pat. Susan, I will get to you. I'm so sorry.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I want to reiterate something that Vern said as far as the board considering opening up Fellowship Hall. Because right now, part of the reason why I don't bother to come back, like Phyllis said, it is convenient being at home, but with the masking required and the social distancing required, I've had all three of my shots, and I recognize, what the government is saying as far as masking and whatnot is concerned, but I miss the fellowship. And quite frankly, I don't see any point in coming if we can't have fellowship. I'd rather just do it on Zoom. Secondly, my question concerning donations and whatnot, we have a lot of seniors in this congregation, and I can't speak for them, but I can speak for myself. I'm giving to the max that I can afford right now. I'm stretched to the max because things keep going up, groceries, gas, all of it. We know what's happening. We have to find a way to get more people to come back to church, and to find a way to get new people to consider trying us out.
You're exactly right. Thank you. Thank you for that. And with both you and Phyllis have expressed the ease of staying at home, and I totally understand that. So, but yes, we do still need to figure out ways. And if you have ideas on ways to attract people to Unity, please share those with us. We would love to hear. And thank you, Pat, for your financial support. We so appreciate what everyone is able to give. So thank you. Susan.
Your comments about the bookstore sort of bothered me a little bit, because to me, books, reading, that is unity. I mean, that's how unity started with the newspaper. So books we had the bookstore closed is because of the COVID thing, we can't get in. But it's not a ministerial thing, it's not, let's open it as soon as we can and do what we can with it. Don't worry about the minister, because let's get it open.
Okay, we will take that into consideration.
If you need help, sort of available.
We'll take down your name. All right. Yeah, come on up.
One thing that occurs to me with the idea of opening up fellowship and what you just said, Susan, is opening that up would mean opening up our library again. And that may be, that's where we got a whole lot of reading for people, whether or not they can buy new stuff. So that's just a thought for people to consider. And that means also that people who might walk in the door and want to learn more can do so easily.
Susan?
Yes. Who called my name?
Linda.
Linda.
I'm going to contact the board directly about this. But I really feel that our speaker last week had a detrimental effect on our attendance. We've had 50 on Zoom at least the last 2 weeks, and today we only had 38. And I was very concerned that the board needs to know what the guest speaker is going to be talking about pretty specifically before they approve them to speak, because I think there are many people who may have been turned off by what he had to say. It was not truly a unity message. It wasn't even close to being a unity message. So let's take a close look at that. We don't want to decrease our attendance for any reason. I think anybody who came today was more than pleased with Kelly's talk. It was wonderful, and that's what we need to have. Thanks.
You're exactly right, Linda. Sharif Abdullah was on a list of potential speakers that had been provided to us by Ariana. I know he has spoken here before, and I think offered a workshop that some of our community took. So when he sent his title, I thought, well, this sounds interesting, but the title of his talk did not, in my view, convey what he shared with us during that message. And I was surprised as well. So I hear you. I think the board understands what you're saying. And, many of us agree that it wasn't what we were expecting. It was thought-provoking, but I do hope people who aren't here today aren't here because he was our speaker last week, because Kelly's talk today was really wonderful. So, okay. Penny?
I just have a question. How many youth is part of this church? I've never seen any younger people here or children, so is there a youth community here?
They're all grown up. Not at this time. Our goal is to attract younger families with children. So that'll be a priority for us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, Noreen.
About the centennial, could we have a build up to the big, kind of maybe some musical things here. They would bring people in, but kind of build to the centennial. Try to bring people in to see what was here.
Sure. Okay.
Please.
Susan, can you repeat that? We can't hear virtually.
What she is saying is reading my mind and what we've been doing already, which is that for our centennial to have a number of activities and sort of build that it's not just all about one event where we have a big celebration, but perhaps some music events or some other things along the way. So again, for those of you who don't know this, I mean, I had one meeting with people who had expressed in the survey that we did in December that they were interested in doing centennial things. And a pretty significant response of people said, yeah, of course we should celebrate our centennial, it's important. When Elizabeth starts this week, one of the first things we're going to do is tell her some of the brainstorming that came out. But we're looking for her guidance then as to how do we actually have a formal committee and chair? How do we have subcommittees? We already have a number of volunteers who are very skilled and interested in our history and have some of those documents out. We know that Reverend Ariana and Rhett, before Ariana left, scanned in all of those things. So we have the skeletal ability and of structure for a really wonderful history book, photo album and book on unity that can be part of what we ultimately culminate and make available to our members and also in the community. There's been talk about having another unity cookbook. There's been talk about perhaps forming having special fundraising so that we could create a labyrinth on the grounds. That would be a way we would journey into the future. There's been talk about having a metaphysics fair or a solstice, but that's just talk. It was just starting the brainstorming because we didn't have a minister for most of the time last year when I think, we would have been starting. So please, let Kayla know, if you're willing to put your time and energy towards working with whatever committees we finally put together so that we can use this experience as a way to not just to pat ourselves on the back, but show, have opportunities for the community to come in and taste and see the syrup flowing of, peace, whatever. At any rate, you get the picture. Sylvia. Do you want to take back over or do okay. So that they might want to know us better. So Sylvia's question is, if we want to attract more younger families, what kinds of activities, services, fun things might we be able to do that would attract members of the community to come and see and directly invite the larger community to come and experience those, and therefore then might be interested in joining. And again, that's an excellent question, and part of what the reason the board is so excited about having Reverend Elizabeth with us is that hopefully she too can help guide us towards one of those things. But in line with what we began with this talk too, all of those things are either going to require more money or they're going to require more volunteers. So, but thank you, good point. I guess I've been offered the opportunity to continue in facilitator role for a bit. Does anyone else have questions or comments?
One of the reasons why I haven't been coming to the sanctuary is because of the time. And I've got some health challenges that happen in the mornings. And even when the church was open, there was times that I would show up, 15 minutes late, and really hate kind of walking in on something that's late. And there used to be, a long time ago, the fellowship hall had, the screen where I could go in there and listen to everything that was happening. And and not disturb the chapel proper with my late coming. So for now, until, some things get straightened out for me, that's why Zoom is really much better for me. Yeah, I would like to be involved in something, and maybe the bingo, that timeline might work better for me to be in the arena of serving to some degree. I also had some thoughts about the bookstore. I really miss having the bookstore, not the bookstore, the gift store open, because I probably would have bought Christmas presents there and what have you. And I just wonder if, there would be some way that sales could happen anyway. Maybe, right now my son is borrowing my car for his business, but in the future, if someone wanted to buy something that they remember the gift store had, I could do delivery. They could buy something and I could just bring it to them.
Well,
Yeah.
and I know, Diana, that it's possible if we had anybody who was particularly tech savvy online, that we might be able to consider opening up some of the bookstore as that people could purchase through online. I don't know, but get back at you that way. But I know there are other things that, I think with Reverend Elizabeth and with us hopefully getting a little bit more past this, the women's group is meeting live and hybrid. The men's group is meeting here live and hybrid, but we've got a technical issue with that internet, but that's being worked on. And again, thank you that Forrest and her son have been helping Mark with that. So, there's a number of little pieces, but what other activities could we do if people don't want to come to church because it's convenient to Zoom, especially when we're having a Zoom speaker anyway? But the fellowship is important, what other things might we do during the week sometimes, or once a month or whatever, that will also provide those opportunities. And maybe, so those, please brainstorm, please keep listening to Spirit and sharing that information. It's board@unity.org, board@unity.org. Or you board at unityrockies.org. Any brainstorming thoughts that you have of how we revitalize and build the foundation for the next 100 years? Don.
Also, well,
Yeah, go ahead, Forrest.
I was just going to say, I used to really enjoy going to the art group that was happening on Saturdays. And since I'm a member, I could actually facilitate opening up the church for that. But I would probably like to change the time from, I can't remember if we met at 10 or 10:30, but meeting at 11 and having it go until like 1 or 2 or something would be nice. And I'm sure that I could probably have a volunteer or two to help with cleaning. And if we set up the tables right, we each artist could have like a full half a table to themselves and still be able to share communications and fun and look-see.
Okay, great idea. Don? So Don is suggesting that we send the e-blast to all who are on the Unity Rockies list. Just once again, do that. And then give them the chance to say, no, I don't want to continue to get this. Okay. Anyone else with guidance, thoughts? Phyllis?
I believe Ariana used to be quite active in the community with writing articles and appearing on radio shows, and that may have attracted members. So maybe that's something that Reverend Elizabeth could pick up on?
Again, that's one of my thoughts with the history work, is that that could be a piece where we could make some occasional articles about, hey, remember, Unity is celebrating its 100 years. But you're right. I mean, while we are not, and the hope is that we don't become so minister-centric that people lose their opportunity to experience the spiritual growth that comes from Siva. We are constrained by the not having someone with that connection. And I think it's going to be, with our interim minister, it's going to still continue to be difficult. But it may be something, again, where we start thinking about who in our community has those connections and can be representing us in that way. Other thoughts?
This is Jarla. I want to thank you all. You've done a great job of presenting the issues and saying what we need to be paying attention to, money and volunteers and more ideas. Thank you so very much. And Diana, I hope to see you at bingo. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. So it sounds like maybe we're winding down. Yes.
We want to be ministry centered, but we still need a very good teacher.
Absolutely. She said we want to be ministry centered, but we still need a very good speaker as a senior minister. And that is absolutely our goal, and a very good teacher and a very good pastoral presence. And we are working towards that. I'm confident, as those of you who may have attended the couple of weeks that Reverend Elizabeth spoke for us remotely, that and gave us an appetizer, that she will give us that continuity, at least part-time, until the universe and our prayers manifest the next senior minister. So, and speaking of prayers then, Sylvia, would you just come up impromptu and close our meeting? Thank you. Thank you.
Our gracious, glorious, loving Heavenly Father, Mother God, we thank you for this sacred time of communion with you and together in oneness as we look to the future and the multitude of ways we can minister to our community by living the truth, by being the truth, speaking love, peace, prosperity into our community, bringing faith, strength, and hope. And so it is. We give you thanks for each person that is one with us in the spiritual community of unity. Amen.
Thanks to all who joined us this morning. Have a wonderful week.